In this video, I'm going to show you how to place the bellows boot on the inner tie rod of this Toyota Corolla. This is located behind the front wheel and you'll need an alignment after this job is done. Let's get started. With the vehicle safely raised and supported, if the vehicle has hubcaps on the wheels, remove them simply by prying them out. At this point, whether you have hubcaps or not, you're going to use a 21mm socket to remove all 5 lug nuts and then remove the wheel. With those off, remove the wheel. With the wheel off, we have a clear view of our tie rod ends. This jam nut right here is the first thing we'll have to loosen up so that we can break free the outer from the inner and separate them. We'll use a 22mm wrench, break it free. That's it right there. If needed, you can use a rubber mallet to tap on the end of the wrench if it's really stuck. Right where the outer tie rod bolts onto the knuckle, there's a cotter pin that we need to remove so we can free up the mounting nut. I'll straighten this out the best I can and then push it through. Discard the old cotter pin, you never want to reuse them. Now use a 17mm socket and remove the mounting nut. Use a hammer, tap the knuckle right here, that'll free up the tie rod stud from the knuckle. Perfect. Now you'll want to count the amount of turns it takes to remove the outer tie rod so that when we put it back on, we put it on the same amount of turns, and that'll get us close to how the alignment was, although still not spot on, which is why you need an alignment at the end. "16 turns for me, it will be different for you." There's the outer tie rod. We have to remove the jam nut completely so we can pull the boot off the inner tie rod. So I will use my 22mm wrench here, and you could either use some pliers or another wrench over here to hold this on. I'll use a 15mm wrench to hold the inner tie rod from spinning, and looks like this comes off by hand, which is great. If not, I was going to use my 22mm wrench. The inner tie rod boot has a clamp right here. With some pliers, pinch it and take it off. And on the other end of the boot, on the power steering rack, you'll see that it has this metal clamp. This is a one-time use clamp, so the easiest way to get this off is with a long pry bar. Put it right up against it, tap it with a hammer, and it should pop off. Remove it, and pull the boot right off the tie rod. Install the boot over the tie rod. It's seated here, and we'll push it to seat it on the steering rack. That popped off of here, but that's okay, we can pull it back after. For now, let's secure it on the steering rack with a wire tie. If you don't have the metal clamps, that's okay, a wire tie will do the trick. I have one started, just gonna bring it in. Make sure it's seated in the correct groove. Once you get it as snug as you can by hand, take some needle nose pliers, stick them right on the base of that wire tie where it locks in, and twist it. This will make it extra tight, but don't tighten it so much that it breaks off, of course. And at this point, once it's snugged up, let's cut off the excess. I'll use some cutters, cut that, pull the boot down on the end here. There we go, that's seated and locked in where it's supposed to be, and then we'll lock that in with a clamp. Apply a thin coating of anti-seize to these threads. This will prevent them from getting stuck in the future, and it will help out with alignment. Install the jam nut, unthread it on all the way. This will also help work that grease into the threads. Apply a little bit of grease or anti-seize to the inside threads of the outer tie rod. Reattach the outer tie rod and thread it on the same amount of turns it took to remove it. That's it right there. Get the jam nut closer to the outer tie rod and get the outer tie rod through the knuckle. We'll put the mounting nut on, snug it up, torque this mounting nut to 36 foot-pounds. This being a castle nut though, after it's torqued to 36, you want to make sure the slot lines up. If it does not, always continue tightening and never loosen, no matter how close it is, to get it to line up. Mine actually happens to line up perfectly, so I'm going to install my cotter pin. Once that's in, we'll bend it over to lock it in. One last thing to do is to tighten up the jam nut, get it nice and snug, and then give it a little bit extra. And now what I like to do is turn the tie rod end so that the outer tie rod is not sitting at an angle up against the knuckle. Reinstall the wheel. Start on all 5 lug nuts, bottom them out in a cross pattern, and also in a cross pattern, torque them to 76 foot-pounds. "76 foot-pounds in a cross pattern, here we go. Double check them all. If your wheels had hubcaps, put them back on. Just make sure you line up the cutout with the valve stem so it can actually go on. Take it for a road test, and don't forget to get an alignment.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.